Hey, what's going on guys? It's Brainbean here again, back with another keyboard review video for you. Now today we're taking a look at Cooler Master's newest flagship keyboard, the much anticipated MK850. Now I was a pretty big fan of the previous MK750, so I have really high hopes for this keyboard. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the review. Starting as always with construction and design, the Cooler Master MK850 is a 109 key mechanical keyboard with an exposed switch design. The keys float over a really nice looking brushed aluminum top plate that's contoured on the sides, which I think looks nice, but it does increase the footprint of the keyboard, which is a fairly large keyboard already. In terms of quality, the MK850 is fairly weighty and it feels solidly built, and there's a minimal amount of flex when really mashing down on the keys. The MK850 comes with a magnetic detachable padded wrist rest that's wrapped in a polyurethane leather. I particularly like that the wrist rest comes out of the board a good distance, meaning that it will easily accommodate any hand size. Far too often I find that short wrist rests leave my wrists just sitting on the desk surface because my hands are too big, so it's always nice to see when they're a good size. The magnets attach firmly and the polyurethane leather is nice and soft to the touch, making it feel really nice to use. There's only some minimalistic branding on the keyboard, which is the Cooler Master logo on the function key and a non-intrusive Cooler Master logo on the wrist rest. And besides, I think the hexagon logo actually looks kind of cool anyways, so I don't really mind seeing it here. The MK850 has full 16.8 million color per key RGB and can be controlled either on the fly by using a combination of function keys or configured more in detail by using the keyboard's companion software. And if you notice some flickering in the lights, that's just from the camera and it's not something that you'll notice with the human eye. The software has a very clean and user-friendly interface, and you can use it to easily create your own custom profiles. Cooler Master has always offered a really good amount of preset lighting effects, and in this case there are an absolute ton to choose from, and the software allows you to layer up to 4 preset effects. They even have a preset to play Snake right on the keyboard, which is pretty darn cool. The software also allows you to create macros, bind keys, and manage up to 4 custom profiles. You can use it to configure the AIMPAD settings, which I'll get to a little bit later in the video as well. Much like the MK750, the MK850 has a light bar that wraps around the front and sides of the keyboard. The MK850's, however, is a substantial improvement over the somewhat underpronounced bar of the MK750. The only negative for me here is that it gets covered up by the wrist rest. Another thing when it comes to the lighting is because there's no LED indicators, the respective keys won't be lit on the keyboard unless they're activated, which can kind of break up the aesthetic of the RGB lighting. Having an unlit key can be kind of distracting, so keep that in mind if you find it bothersome. The MK850 uses Cherry MX Red switches. Now this is kind of a bummer for me personally because I like tactile switches, and I think it's going to be disappointing for those of you that like clicky switches as well. The reason it's only offered in red switches has to do with the AIMPAD technology that I'm going to get to a little bit later in the video. Still, gripes aside, Cherry MX switches still prove to be a solid switch, and the clear switch bodies pair really well with the floating key design and create a nice aesthetic. As is customary on the channel, here is a quick sound test of those Cherry MX Reds. The keycaps on the MK850 are made of ABS plastic and they have a nice clean minimalistic font. All of the keys are well illuminated, clearly defining the characters, and all of the secondary characters are lit as well. The cable on the MK850 is detachable, which is always nice, and it consists of a braided gold-plated USB-C cable. The underside of the keyboard has 5 rubberized pads and 2 rubberized extendable legs to keep the keyboard from moving around on the desk. There's also a 3-channel cable routing system under the board just to help manage the cables a little bit. In terms of extras, Cooler Master continues to pack it in with the MK850. Included with the box is the padded wrist rest that we talked about earlier, a wired keycap puller which is always nice, and 18 purple PBT keycaps which are enough to cover all of the macro keys and all of the AIMPAD keys that are Q, W, E, R, A, S, D, and F. I always like seeing a healthy amount of quality extras. It just adds to the overall value of the product and makes it seem like the company is really thinking about the user. Getting into the features of the board, there are a set of 5 dedicated macro keys on the left side of the board that I touched on earlier. There's also a set of dedicated media keys at the top center of the board. To the left of those keys are two programmable scroll wheels, which by default controls the volume and the brightness of the LED lighting, but you can change all this in the software. There's also two USB pass-through ports on the back of the board, which is really convenient for plugging in all kinds of things from headsets to mice. Now, I've touched on the AIMPAD tech a couple of times in this video, but now let's get into exactly what that is. AIMPAD is an analog pressure-sensitive control for the movement keys in this keyboard, and it works on the Q, W, E, R, A, S, D, and F keys. It works by using the power of light to sense how far down the key is at any given time. Now, this is similar to what you'll see in the Wooting 1, but the Cherry switches offer it at a full 4mm range compared to the FlareTech switches in the Wooting 1 offering at a 2.1mm range, giving you more dynamic options for your inputs. Overall, this input method works pretty well, and for certain games it's going to be much more noticeable than others. It's a nice evolution from the simple binary on and off inputs that we're used to, and it functions similar to how a joystick on a controller works, where it moves faster the farther down you depress it. It's definitely a cool addition. I don't know how much it's going to be used by PC gamers who are used to having normal keyboard controls for years, but if you take the time to get used to it, I could see it being beneficial on certain types of games. Now, you can fine-tune the AIMPAD controls in the software or on the fly with the buttons that are located just above the number pad. My only real negatives with this board are that the light bar in the front gets covered up by the wrist rest and just the overall large and busy look of the keyboard. And depending on your switch preference, the limitation of only having reds could be a minus as well. Fortunately, the positives largely outweigh the negatives of the MK850. It has a great assortment of quality extras, the AIMPAD tech is pretty neat, and the software is clean, intuitive, and powerful. For $200, the MK850 is certainly commanding a premium price. There's a ton of value to be had with the MK850, and it's clear that Cooler Master is continuing to up their keyboard game. Now, I feel like this is probably going to be a pretty polarizing keyboard, either by switch choice or by the overall aesthetic, but if it's one that tickles your fancy, you can rest assured that you'll be getting a quality experience. Well, that's it for the video, guys. Let me know in those comments down below what you think about the MK850. Do you agree with what I had to say, or maybe you've got your own opinion? You can write that down in the comments below. Of course, you can give this video a like if you enjoyed it to show your support, and if you're new here, I'd love to see you subscribe, so I've got a lot more videos like this coming for you in the near future. And you can also follow me on Twitter at BrainBeanGaming to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel, as well as participate in some exclusive Twitter giveaways that I have going on in the very near future. Well, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.